Mock looked at him, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Be careful, Vincent. Some truths are best left undisturbed." "Not this one," Vincent countered, his voice firm. "Not when it's about the very beings who took everything from me." Mock arranged the meeting. Vincent once again found himself in Xylan's austere office, the atmosphere heavier than before. Xylan listened patiently as Vincent explained his theory about the ancient entity and his need for access to the redacted files. "You seek answers that have remained hidden for eons, Vincent," Xylan said, his voice echoing in the silent room. "Answers that have broken stronger minds than yours. The truth behind the Wardens, if it is what we suspect, is not a simple narrative of good versus evil. It is a fundamental force, a primal opposition to the very order we seek to maintain." Xylan's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Vincent stood his ground, his gaze unwavering. "I understand the risks, sir, but if this ancient entity is truly at play, then understanding it is not a risk. It's a necessity. We cannot fight an enemy we don't comprehend." Xylan studied Vincent for a long moment, his ancient eyes seeming to pierce through him. Finally, he gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Very well. Your logic is sound. Even if the path is perilous, follow me." He led Vincent to a hidden chamber beneath his office, accessible only by a biometric scanner and a series of intricate energy locks. The chamber was stark and cold, dominated by a single, massive data vault, its surface glowing with faint, protective runes. "These files contain millennia of suppressed knowledge," Xylan explained, his voice low. "Records of events deemed too destructive to galactic morale, too disruptive to the established order. They speak of the Void Whisperers, a force that predates even the earliest known civilizations, a force that feeds on disharmony and seeks to unravel the very fabric of reality by amplifying inherent tensions." Vincent felt a chill run down his spine. The Void Whisperers. The name itself evoked a sense of ancient, creeping dread. Xylan activated the vault, and with a low hum, its surface parted, revealing a single, crystalline data shard. "This shard contains the most critical information. Be warned, Vincent, the knowledge within is not merely factual. It is experiential. It can affect the mind, revealing truths that challenge one's very perception of existence." Vincent nodded, his hand already reaching for the shard. He felt a strange pull, a resonance with the ancient data, as his fingers closed around the crystal. A torrent of images, sounds, and emotions flooded his mind. He saw ancient galactic empires crumble, not from external invasion, but from internal strife, subtly amplified by unseen forces. He witnessed civilizations turn on themselves, driven by irrational fear and suspicion, their societies dissolving into chaos. He saw the birth of the Wardens, not as a singular organization, but as a fragmented cult, formed by beings who had succumbed to the Void Whisperer's influence, believing that true order could only be achieved through controlled chaos. A twisted reflection of the Whisperer's own destructive agenda. He saw the worms, too, not merely biological constructs, but sentient beings, enslaved by the Wardens, their minds twisted into tools of psychological warfare, their very existence a living testament to the Void Whisperer's ability to corrupt and control. The memory of his own torment at their hands returned, but now it was tinged with a strange sense of empathy for their plight. They were victims, just like him. The visions were overwhelming, stretching his mind to its limits. He saw Cassus, Mac's father, as a much younger dragon, a warrior fighting bravely against the nascent Warden cult, his face etched with grim determination as he witnessed the subtle erosion of galactic peace. He saw Xylan himself, thousands of years ago, a nascent leader struggling to understand the unseen forces that were tearing his world apart. His intelligence already seeking patterns in the seemingly random chaos. He saw the Enforcer's origins, not as a bureaucratic police force, but as a desperate collective of various species, united by the shared realization that something ancient and insidious was at play. Something that required a unified, coordinated defense. When the visions finally receded, Vincent collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. His head pounded, and his mind felt stretched thin, as if he had experienced 1,000 lifetimes in mere moments. But amidst the overwhelming chaos of newfound knowledge, a profound clarity emerged. He understood now. The Wardens were merely puppets, tools of a far older, far more insidious entity. The Void Whisperers weren't seeking conquest. They were seeking unraveling. They thrived on discord, on fear, on the breakdown of connection. They were the ultimate architects of chaos, driving civilizations to destroy themselves from within. They don't want to rule, Vincent whispered, his voice hoarse. They want to disintegrate. Xylan knelt beside him, his expression grim. You see the truth now, Vincent. The Wardens are merely the latest manifestation of their influence. A group convinced they can control the chaos, unaware that they are merely accelerating the universe's ultimate demise. Vincent pushed himself up, his eyes burning with a new, terrifying resolve. His personal quest for revenge against the worms had expanded into a galactic imperative. He wasn't just fighting an organization. He was fighting an ancient, cosmic evil. How do we stop them? Vincent asked, his voice firm despite the lingering tremors in his hands. Xylan looked at him, a flicker of something akin to hope in his ancient eyes. That, Vincent, is the question that has plagued us for millennia. But now, with your unique abilities, with your understanding of both data and the emotional spectrum, perhaps we finally have a chance. Perhaps you are the one who can find their weakness, the one who can silence the Void Whisperers for good. Vincent threw himself into the task, now with a terrifying clarity about the true nature of his enemy. He spent weeks poring over ancient texts, historical records, and the deepest, most restricted Enforcer intelligence. He cross-referenced mythological accounts with archaeological data, searching for any recurring patterns, any faint echoes of the Void Whisperer's influence throughout galactic history. His unique empathic abilities, now honed to an extraordinary degree, allowed him to perceive the emotional residue left by the Whisperer's subtle manipulations. He could sense the waves of irrational fear that had swept through ancient civilizations, the seeds of division that had been planted by unseen hands, and the echoes of despair that marked the collapse of once great empires. It was like tracing the path of a silent, invisible plague through time. He discovered that the Void Whisperers rarely acted directly. Instead, they would subtly amplify existing anxieties, exploit pre-existing social fractures, and whisper doubts into the minds of leaders, turning petty disagreements into civil wars, and minor cultural differences into genocidal conflicts. Their strength lay in their ability to make populations destroy themselves, believing their self-inflicted wounds were external threats. One day, while researching ancient psychological warfare techniques, Vincent found a recurring symbol in several unrelated historical accounts: a stylized, spiraling vortex. It was present in murals from a long-dead civilization that succumbed to an unexplained mass hysteria, etched into the walls of a forgotten prison where political dissidents inexplicably turned on each other, and even subtly woven into the fabric of a children's story that ended with the complete distrust of all outsiders. This symbol, Vincent showed it to Mock, pointing to a shimmering holographic recreation. It's everywhere, But it's so subtle, so easily dismissed as mere artistic design. I think it's a signature. A psychological trigger, perhaps. Or a conduit for their influence. Mock studied the symbol. His brow furrowed. We've seen it before. In fragmented intelligence reports, but it's never been linked to any specific entity. It's always been attributed to a generalized, ancient dread. It's not dread, Vincent corrected, his eyes fixed on the vortex. It's a pathway. A way for them to amplify specific emotions. To push people towards a collective breakdown of trust. As Vincent delved deeper, he began to understand the true horror of the Void Whisperers. They didn't have physical armies. Their weapons were the minds of sentient beings. They didn't seek resources. They sought the unraveling of all connection. Their victory wasn't conquest. It was ultimate, pervasive isolation. He worked closely with the Enforcer's top cyber warfare specialists, trying to identify digital counterparts to the physical symbol, looking for hidden frequencies or subliminal messages embedded in galactic communication networks. It was a painstaking process, but Vincent's insights guided their efforts, directing them to obscure data streams and overlooked algorithms. Finally, after weeks of relentless work, they found it, a faint, recurring frequency embedded in the lowest layers of the galactic communications grid. A frequency that modulated with the spiral symbol. It was designed to be undetectable by conventional means, masked by background cosmic radiation. When amplified, it subtly resonated with the fear centers of sentient brains, increasing paranoia, suspicion, and aggression. This is it, Vincent said, his voice trembling with a mixture of triumph and horror. This is how they've been whispering through the void. This is their primary conduit of influence. The cyber warfare specialists, guided by Vincent, worked frantically to develop a counter-frequency, a nullifier that could jam or even reverse the effects of the Void Whisperer's signal. It was a theoretical breakthrough, something they had never dared to attempt before. Meanwhile, Xylan received constant updates from Vincent's team. He watched the developing counter-strategy with a grim determination. The implications of Vincent's discovery were immense. It meant that the entire galactic history of conflict and strife might have been subtly influenced by this unseen force. One afternoon, Xylan himself entered Vincent's analytical lab. He watched as the cyber warfare specialists fine-tuned the nullifier, a complex array of energy emitters and modulation chambers. This nullifier, Xylan began, his voice deep. If it works, it could change everything. But if it fails, or if the Whisperers retaliate, the consequences could be catastrophic. It has to work, sir, Vincent replied, his gaze fixed on the complex schematics. We can't afford for it not to. What are its risks, Vincent? Xylan pressed. How does it affect organic life? We are dealing with subtle energies of the mind. An imprecise counter could cause unforeseen damage, Vincent explained. It's designed to specifically target the Whisperer's frequency, to disrupt its ability to resonate with fear centers. Our simulations show minimal collateral effects on non-targeted emotional pathways. It's like tuning out a specific radio station. The airwaves are still there, but that particular signal is silenced. Xylan nodded, still thoughtful. And the Wardens? How will they react when their primary tool of influence is suddenly rendered inert? They will be disoriented, sir, Vincent said. They rely on this subtle manipulation. Without it, they'll be exposed, forced to act overtly, which will make them vulnerable. It will be our chance to strike at their core operations, to break their network for good. Xylan looked at the nullifier, then back at Vincent. Prepare the nullifier for deployment. We will target the regions where the Whisperer's influence is strongest, where the Warden's operations are most insidious. We begin the counter-offensive at dawn. The dawn of the counter-offensive arrived. cloaked in a chilling stillness that belied the frantic activity within Enforcer headquarters. Vincent, Mach, and the specialized task force were in the central command center. A massive, holographic display mapping the galaxy shimmering before them. Key regions, identified by Vincent's analysis as hotbeds of Void Whisperer influence and Warden operations, were highlighted in pulsating red. Nullifier deployment commencing in Sector Gamma 7. A voice announced over the comms, "All units, prepare for potential Warden retaliation. Remember, their primary weapon is psychological. Maintain discipline." Vincent watched anxiously as the first nullifier array, a complex piece of technology emitting subtle counter-frequencies, activated in the designated sector. On the holographic map, the red pulsating light in Gamma 7 flickered, then dimmed, replaced by a calm, soft blue. Initial reports from Gamma 7 indicate a significant drop in fear-based emotional resonance. An analyst reported, his voice tinged with awe, "Warden's operatives are showing signs of disorientation. Their coordinated efforts appear to be breaking down." A wave of relief washed over Vincent, quickly followed by a surge of grim satisfaction. It was working. The Whisperer's influence was being silenced, but the Wardens were not passive, as their subtle psychological tools were rendered inert. Their desperation mounted, and they resorted to more conventional, brutal tactics. Reports of overt attacks began to flood in. Raids on supply convoys, direct assaults on Enforcer outposts, and desperate attempts to destabilize critical infrastructure with brute force. Wardens are engaging Enforcer patrol in Sector Delta 9. A comms officer shouted, "They're attempting to bypass the nullifier's reach." Heavy resistance reported. As expected, Xylan's deep voice resonated through the command center. He stood at the central console, his obsidian scales gleaming in the holographic light, his eyes fixed on the unfolding battle. They are cornered. Without their whispers, they must show their true faces. Mach, dispatch reinforcements to Delta 9. Vincent, can you predict their next move based on this shift in tactics? Vincent, now fully immersed in the tactical flow, nodded. Their resources are finite, sir. If they're resorting to direct attacks, they're likely attempting to secure a major power source or a strategic communication hub to re-establish their influence. Look for areas with high energy output or central communication relays. He pointed to a cluster of symbols on the map, highlighting a seldom used deep space energy relay in a sparsely populated sector. This could be it. It's remote, but provides enough power to potentially bypass the nullifier's localized effect if they can secure it and boost their signal. Xylan immediately dispatched a strike team, led by Mach, to intercept the Wardens at the energy relay. The battle was fierce, but with Vincent's precise intelligence and the Warden's disorientation, the Enforcers managed to secure the relay and capture several high-ranking Warden commanders, with the primary conduit of the Void Whisperer's influence suppressed, and key Warden leaders apprehended. The tides of the galactic conflict began to turn decisively. The Wardens, stripped of their most potent weapon, fractured into disorganized pockets of resistance. However, Vincent knew this was just the beginning. The Void Whisperers themselves were not destroyed. They were merely silenced, dormant. They were an ancient, primal force, and they would surely seek another way to amplify discord. He spent the following weeks leading debriefings, extracting information from captured Warden commanders. He used his empathic abilities to pierce through their ingrained fanaticism, sensing the underlying fear and despair that had made them susceptible to the Whisperer's influence. He learned of their desperate attempts to reconnect with the Void's song, and their confusion as the signal simply vanished. They truly believed they were bringing a new order, Vincent explained to Xylan after an interrogation. They thought they were controlling the chaos, using it to cleanse the galaxy. They don't even realize they were just puppets, accelerating the very disintegration they claimed to prevent. Xylan nodded grimly. A common fallacy throughout history. The promise of ultimate control often leads to ultimate self-destruction. Vincent also focused on understanding the worms more deeply. He discovered that their existence was tied to a unique biofrequency, a subtle resonance that made them susceptible to the Whisperer's psychological manipulation. He began to work with Enforcer bioengineers, not to destroy the worms, but to find a way to sever their connection to the Void Whisperer's frequency, to liberate them from their forced servitude. This was a complex and morally challenging task. Many in the Enforcers still viewed the worms as dangerous instruments of the enemy, but Vincent, remembering his own suffering and the realization that the worms were also victims, was determined to find a path to their redemption. He believed that true justice lay not just in defeating the enemy, but in healing the wounds they had inflicted, even on their own tools. His personal journey of healing and justice had now truly become intertwined with the fate of the galaxy. He was no longer just fighting for himself or his past. He was fighting for the very soul of the universe, for the chance for all sentient beings to exist free from the whispers of ancient discord. Vincent's work on liberating the worms proved to be his most challenging endeavor yet. The Enforcer bioengineers, while brilliant, were initially skeptical. They saw the worms as hostile entities, and the idea of redeeming them was alien to their scientific, military-focused mindset. Vincent had to constantly advocate for them, explaining that the worms were not inherently evil, but victims of a far greater manipulation. He worked alongside the bioengineers, using his empathic abilities to understand the worms' inherent biofrequencies, their susceptibility to the Void Whisperer's signal, and the deep-seated trauma that made them aggressive. It was a painstaking process of trial and error, experimenting with various counter-frequencies and sonic modulations designed to disrupt the Whisperer's control without harming the worms. During this period, Vincent also deepened his understanding of the Void Whisperers. He discovered that their ancient influence was not purely malicious in intent, but a primal, almost unconscious force of cosmic entropy, drawn to instability and chaos like a moth to a flame. They didn't choose to destroy. They merely amplified what was already there, pushing natural cycles of discord to their breaking point. This realization, while terrifying, also offered a glimmer of hope. If their influence was a reaction, perhaps it could be unreacted. After months of dedicated research and experimentation, Vincent and the bioengineers finally achieved a breakthrough. They developed a unique resonant frequency, a harmony signal, that could neutralize the Void Whisperer's control over the worms. It was a gentle, almost musical vibration that resonated with the worms' original, uncorrupted biofrequency, essentially retuning them to their natural state. The first test was nerve-wracking. A small group of captured worms, still aggressive and twitching under the Whisperer's influence, were exposed to the harmony signal. For a few tense moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the worms' frantic movements subsided. Their aggression faded, replaced by a confused, almost peaceful stillness. Their optical sensors, once glowing with a malevolent red, dimmed to a soft, ethereal blue. It worked, a bioengineer whispered, her voice filled with disbelief and wonder. They're calm. Vincent felt a wave of profound relief and empathy. He reached out, cautiously touching one of the worms. It didn't recoil. Instead, it slowly, hesitantly, extended a tendril towards him. a gesture of almost innocent curiosity. This breakthrough was monumental. It meant that not only could the enforcers fight the wardens more effectively, but they could also offer a path to rehabilitation for countless enslaved beings, turning instruments of destruction into potential allies. News of the Harmony Signal and the liberated worms spread throughout the enforcer ranks, further solidifying Vincent's reputation as a visionary. Xylan himself came to witness the effect of the Harmony Signal. He observed the transformed worms, their previous malevolence replaced by a quiet, almost inquisitive demeanor. His ancient eyes held a newfound respect for Vincent. "You have not only silenced a whisper, Vincent," Xylan rumbled. "You have redeemed its victims. This is a level of justice beyond our wildest imaginings." With the worms no longer under the Whisperer's sway, the Wardens lost a critical advantage. Their ability to sow fear and discord through psychological warfare was severely hampered. The Enforcers launched a renewed offensive, targeting the remaining Warden strongholds with increased precision and efficiency. The battles were still fierce, but the tide was undeniably in the Enforcers' favor. Vincent, now known throughout the Enforcers as the Whisperer's Bane and the Redeemer of the Corrupted, was at the forefront of this final push. He continued to provide crucial insights, guiding strike teams to the heart of Warden operations, identifying their weakened points, and predicting their desperate counter-moves. The war, which had seemed endless, was finally drawing to a close. The Wardens, fractured and leaderless, were systematically dismantled. Their last remaining fortresses fell, their remnants scattered and hunted down. The galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief, emerging from under the shadow of the Void Whisperer's subtle, insidious influence. But Vincent knew that victory was not absolute. The Void Whisperers, as an ancient force, could not be truly destroyed. They were dormant, suppressed, but they lingered. The Harmony Signal offered a temporary solution, a way to mitigate their influence, but it was not a permanent cure for the underlying cosmic entropy they represented. His personal journey had come full circle. He had reclaimed his memories, found a new family in Mach and the Enforcers, and used his pain to become a force for good. He had avenged his past by fighting for the galaxy's future. Yet, a deeper understanding had settled within him. The universe was a place of perpetual balance, and his role, perhaps, was to forever be its guardian, its harmonizer. The aftermath of the war against the Wardens saw the galaxy slowly rebuilding. The Enforcers, their reputation bolstered by their decisive victory and Vincent's invaluable contributions, began a massive reconstruction effort. Trust, which had been so systematically eroded by the Void Whisperers and their Warden puppets, began to mend. Sector by sector, Vincent found himself at the heart of this rebuilding. He no longer confined himself to data analysis. With Mach often at his side, he visited the once targeted sectors, using his empathic abilities not to detect fear, but to foster hope. He helped mediate disputes, calmed lingering anxieties, and assisted in the reintegration of the liberated worms, who, after prolonged exposure to the Harmony Signal, were gradually rediscovering their original, peaceful nature. Many of them even joined the Enforcers' efforts, using their unique abilities for environmental remediation and infrastructure repair. His work with the worms taught him more about empathy than any previous experience. He learned to differentiate between their innate instincts and the programming that had corrupted them, finding beauty in their original forms. It was a profound lesson in understanding and forgiveness, a testament to the idea that even the most twisted beings could find redemption. Xylan, observing Vincent's evolution, often consulted him not just on strategic matters, but on philosophical ones. The ancient leader seemed to find a unique perspective in Vincent, a blend of human intuition and galactic understanding that resonated with his own millennia of experience. The Void Whisperers are dormant, Vincent, Xylan said one day, as they overlooked a newly thriving planetary settlement. But they are not gone. Their influence is a force of nature, like a shadow that follows the light. How do we ensure this peace endures? Vincent considered his words carefully. We build stronger connections, sir. We foster greater understanding. The Whisperers thrive on isolation and distrust. If we make the galaxy more unified, more empathetic, then their whispers will find no fertile ground. This became Vincent's new mission. He transitioned from being a tactical asset to a diplomatic and cultural bridge builder. He spearheaded initiatives for interspecies dialogue, promoting shared cultural festivals, and establishing exchange programs between diverse worlds. He worked to dismantle the lingering prejudices that the Whisperers had exploited, showing civilizations that their differences were sources of strength, not division. He traveled extensively, sometimes with Mach, sometimes alone, meeting with leaders, educators, and common citizens. His personal story, once a source of deep pain, became a powerful narrative of resilience and redemption. He spoke of his own experiences with manipulation and how he found purpose in countering it, inspiring countless beings to look beyond their own fears and embrace unity. The galactic news channels, once filled with reports of conflict and fear, now showcased stories of cooperation, innovation, and shared prosperity. Vincent, once an unknown human kidnapped from a forgotten world, became a symbol of galactic hope, a living testament to the power of empathy over discord. Yet, despite the widespread peace, Vincent remained vigilant. He knew that the Whisperers were patient. He understood that their influence might re-emerge in new forms, through new vulnerabilities. He continued to monitor subtle emotional shifts across the galaxy, always listening for the faintest echo of discord, ready to deploy the harmony signal or intervene personally if needed. His unique ability, once a burden, had become his greatest gift, a tool for constant vigilance and proactive healing. He became the galaxy's silent guardian, its emotional compass, always pointing towards harmony. One evening, as he stood on the balcony of his apartment with Mach, looking out at the glittering expanse of the now truly peaceful city, Vincent felt a deep sense of contentment he hadn't known possible. He had a family, a purpose, and a galaxy that was, in many ways, his home. Do you ever miss your original world? Mach asked softly, sensing Vincent's contemplative mood. Vincent paused, a faint smile on his lips. Sometimes, the memories are still there, clear as day, but this is my world now. This is where I belong. He looked at Mach, his eyes filled with gratitude. And I have you. Mach returned his gaze, a rare warmth in his usually stoic expression. Always, Vincent, always. The universe continued its vast, endless dance of creation and change. But now, thanks to the human Whisperer's bane, the redeemed, the harmonizer, it danced in a rhythm of conscious balance, guided by the quiet strength of empathy and the unwavering commitment to a shared, harmonious future. The aftermath of the war against the Wardens saw the galaxy slowly rebuilding. The Enforcers, their reputation bolstered by their decisive victory and Vincent's invaluable contributions, began a massive reconstruction effort. Trust, which had been so systematically eroded by the Void Whisperers and their Warden puppets, began to mend. Sector by sector, Vincent found himself at the heart of this rebuilding. He no longer confined himself to data analysis. With Mach often at his side, he visited the once targeted sectors, using his empathic abilities not to detect fear, but to foster hope. He helped mediate disputes, calmed lingering anxieties, and assisted in the reintegration of the liberated worms, who, after prolonged exposure to the harmony signal, were gradually rediscovering their original, peaceful nature. Many of them even joined the Enforcer's efforts, using their unique abilities for environmental remediation and infrastructure repair. His work with the worms taught him more about empathy than any previous experience. He learned to differentiate between their innate instincts and the programming that had corrupted them, finding beauty in their original forms. It was a profound lesson in understanding and forgiveness, a testament to the idea that even the most twisted beings could find redemption. Xylan, observing Vincent's evolution, often consulted him not just on strategic matters, but on philosophical ones. The ancient leader seemed to find a unique perspective in Vincent, a blend of human intuition and galactic understanding that resonated with his own millennia of experience. The Void Whisperers are dormant, Vincent, Xylan said one day, as they overlooked a newly thriving planetary settlement. But they are not gone. Their influence is a force of nature, like a shadow that follows the light. How do we ensure this peace ensues? Vincent considered his words carefully. We build stronger connections, sir. We foster greater understanding. The Whisperers thrive on isolation and distrust. If we make the galaxy more unified, more empathetic, then their whispers will find no fertile ground. This became Vincent's new mission. He transitioned from being a tactical asset to a diplomatic and cultural bridge builder. He spearheaded initiatives for interspecies dialogue, promoting shared cultural festivals, and establishing exchange programs between diverse worlds. He worked to dismantle the lingering prejudices that the Whisperers had exploited, showing civilizations that their differences were sources of strength, not division. He traveled extensively, sometimes with Mach, sometimes alone, meeting with leaders, educators, and common citizens. His personal story, once a source of deep pain, became a powerful narrative of resilience and redemption. He spoke of his own experiences with manipulation and how he found purpose in countering it, inspiring countless beings to look beyond their own fears and embrace unity. The galactic news channels, once filled with reports of conflict and fear, now showcased stories of cooperation, innovation, and shared prosperity. Vincent, once an unknown human kidnapped from a forgotten world, became a symbol of galactic hope, a living testament to the power of empathy over discord. Yet, despite the widespread peace, Vincent remained vigilant. He knew that the Whisperers were patient. He understood that their influence might re-emerge in new forms, through new vulnerabilities. He continued to monitor subtle emotional shifts across the galaxy, always listening for the faintest echo of discord, ready to deploy the harmony signal or intervene personally if needed. His unique ability, once a burden, had become his greatest gift, a tool for constant vigilance and proactive healing. He became the galaxy's silent guardian, its emotional compass, always pointing towards harmony. One evening, as he stood on the balcony of his apartment with Mach, looking out at the glittering expanse of the now truly peaceful city, Vincent felt a deep sense of contentment he hadn't known possible. He had a family, a purpose, and a galaxy that was, in many ways, his home. Do you ever miss your original world? Mach asked softly, sensing Vincent's contemplative mood. Vincent paused, a faint smile on his lips. Sometimes, the memories are still there, clear as day. But this is my world now. This is where I belong. He looked at Mach, his eyes filled with gratitude. And I have you. Mach returned his gaze, a rare warmth in his usually stoic expression. Always, Vincent, Always, the universe continued its vast, endless dance of creation and change. But now, thanks to the human whisperer's bane, the redeemed, the harmonizer, it danced in a rhythm of conscious balance, guided by the quiet strength of empathy and the unwavering commitment to a shared, harmonious future.